it was a game that, man, Wisconsin for so much of this game, they just had. They were driving. They got to call all the turns. They got to pick all the road stops. Like when you were saying, like, hey guys, like we're going to be hitting exit number 4. Wisconsin got to say, we're going to Jersey Mike's. You know what? I understand what everybody else in the car wants to do because they were in total control of this game. Their defense was great. Penn State couldn't get really anything going. I did make a comment in the group chat, and I will stand by it, that I was looking for this new era and this modern offense with Graham Mertz, especially after everything we saw from his debut against Illinois in that weird 2020 season opener for the Badgers. Then he gets COVID, and then the whole season gets sideways for Wisconsin. But in this one, it just kind of looked like he was doing Wisconsin stuff. You could have told me that was Jack Cohn, who's going to be starting for Notre Dame against Florida State, that it was Jack Cohn under center, but it was actually Graham Mertz. But doing Wisconsin stuff, listen, that's still like going for it on 4th down because we got bigger boys and we're going to go get this. Like we're just going to be shutting you down. They were playing a game that they had won, and then Jahan Dotson happened, and then some turnovers happened, a couple pick sixes, a couple of good like plays from behind the line of scrimmage. Tom, what was your sort of strongest read from this? Again, let's pitch it in the same sort of lens as the Clemson, Georgia. Are you coming out of this with stronger feelings about Wisconsin or Penn State?
First of all, you're getting confused with Iowa and Indiana. There were no pick sixes in this game. That would have made it exciting, and this game was not exciting in the slightest. Coaches say it all the time. It's so cliched. It's like, what comes, just don't turn the ball over and finish drives. Wisconsin turned the ball over 3 times, and it was 1 for 4 in the red zone, managing only 7 points on 4 red zone trips. It fumbled once. It got a field goal blocked. It was a horrible day for Wisconsin finishing drives, and a lot of that credit goes to Penn State's front 7. Arthur Ebiketie, a transfer from Temple, was a monster. I feel like every school should be checking Temple for pass rush transfers in the future if you need a quick infusion, because Quincy Roche last year at Miami, and now Ebiketie with this year with Penn State's off to a great start. But to go along what you were saying with the Wisconsin offense not looking different, I don't think it's by choice. I think my biggest takeaway from what I could see in this game today was it's not that dissimilar to what we were just talking about with Georgia and Clemson. Like, Wisconsin has Jake Ferguson at tight end, who's a good player for them at the tight end position, who can help them up the seams, but he's not a guy who is stretching teams vertically. Like, he's not beating linebackers and safeties. He's not that kind of Kyle Pitts matchup where you can have him running vertical down the field and beating guys. And Wisconsin just doesn't have those guys at the wide receiver spot. So Penn State was athletic enough with its linebackers and safeties to kind of take Ferguson out of the picture. And Wisconsin didn't have its own version of Jahan Dotson to break free in the secondary for big plays for Graham Mertz to find them. And I think that really hindered what the Badgers were doing. And then on the flip side, Penn State was very inefficient offensively, but like you said, they hit Jahan Dotson on a couple deep shots. Sean Clifford looks better throwing vertically than he does on the intermediate to short stuff, even though you're still, not as efficient as you'd like on those deep passes. But it was what was working best for that Penn State offense today. So I think Wisconsin is going to probably look back on this game and feel like it's one that it should have won, but I don't think Penn State feels like it, stole anything either. I feel like Penn State just thinks defensively we hung in there and gave ourselves a chance at the end, made the few plays when we needed them, and Wisconsin just didn't make the plays.
Wisconsin was just missing a Quintez Cephas type, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the last explosive guy they've had on the outside. Like their skill guys on the outside are just not very impressive. You can play them in single coverage and actually be pretty confident, right? Like they don't scare me. They don't scare Tom or Chip or anybody in the comment section here. Like they're just not.
Hey, listen,
scary.
Danny Davis is all right. Danny Davis,
he's supposed to be that guy, but he just
23 yards is the longest catch.
I know.
23 yards. What was the second longest catch? 16. Like, they don't take the top off. You would think with how much play action they run, they would be able to get over the top of somebody and bust something deep, and they don't. And then they're like, we're tough. We're Wisconsin. We're going to run the ball. And, I mean, their top 2 backs had 44 for 177. Like, I'll give that to you all day. That's not efficient.
Yeah, I thought that, for a Penn State team that we think their running backs are awesome. I mean, and granted, it's Wisconsin. So we do the same Clemson, Georgia thing where we have to adjust our scale based on the fact that you're going up against a defense that we expect to be one of the best in the country. But like, I kind of thought Penn State's offensive line kind of got worked at the point of attack, and the fact that they had to lean on some of these explosive plays. Like we said it in the stakes game, to go back into it. I feel like I'm coming out of this being like, wow, Penn State went to Madison and got a win. This is a team that we should believe is set for a potential bounce back season. Is that a overreaction?
I think slightly. I mean, it depends what your version of bounce back is. Like if you're talking about 11-1, no. If you're talking about being maybe the second best team in the conference, or at least being, a good Big Ten team, then yes. I think that while this isn't a win that really proves anything, I think it is, at least for this Penn State team, a confidence boost, because, you started terribly last year. You finished this last season on the 5-game win streak. And now you're starting this year with a road win against Wisconsin. And while it was ugly, it's still a road win against the top 20 team. You're going to feel good about it. So I think that if Penn State, this could be a good step forward to having a much better 2021. It's just, I still have some serious doubts about the ceiling of this team unless Sean Clifford makes some improvements, and that offensive line had a nightmare day today. Unless we see improvement there, it could be a difficult season still.
I did not watch 1 second of Auburn-Akron. Will you give me any reason to step off my position that Penn State is a much better team than Auburn and will probably win that game in Happy Valley?
I'm not assuming that. I think I would still pick Penn State right now, but I didn't see anything of Auburn's game today, really, so I couldn't tell you. But I know Bo Nix balled out. 20 and 22, 275, 3 touchdowns.
I think Akron's the worst team in the FBS.
Maybe.
I know we've seen UConn lose, but I really do, because I don't know if Tom, I don't know if you saw this or not, but Tion Dollard, they're the only reason why you think Akron might win a single game this year. He's not on the roster, which makes me feel really good about that Bowling Green over, because I'm gonna get that dub against Tom, because Tion Dollard is not on that. Anyway, there was a reason that Akron's team total in the first half was 0.5. I almost bet the under this morning. I was like, man, is Akron really going to score? Not to have a too early preview of the Penn State game. Auburn still has a whole lot of defensive speed in the back seven, but I don't think that their defensive line is all that good. They've lost some important pieces off that defensive line. So I'll be interested to see how much they can bust up Penn State's offensive line like Wisconsin was able to do today.